Have you ever felt invisible in someone's life? Have you ever sent a message that was never answered? Reached out to someone who never reached back? Or given your time and energy to a person who barely acknowledged your presence? It's a painful experience, one that leaves you questioning your worth, your importance, and sometimes even your entire sense of self. But what if I told you that being ignored isn't a reflection of your value, but a revelation of theirs? What if the silence, the indifference, and the lack of effort were actually gifts in disguise, signs pointing you toward the truth you've been avoiding? We waste our energy chasing people who don't see us, convincing ourselves that if we try harder, prove our worth, or just hold on a little longer, things will change. But the reality is, the right people in your life will never make you feel invisible. They will never leave you questioning whether you matter to them. So today, let's talk about something powerful: letting go of those who ignore you. Not out of anger, not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect. Because life is too short to keep knocking on closed doors when better ones are waiting to open. Your value doesn't decrease just because someone fails to recognize it. Too often, people tie their self-worth to how others treat them, believing that if someone ignores them, rejects them, or doesn't appreciate them, it must mean they are not good enough. This is one of the most damaging beliefs a person can hold. The truth is, self-worth is not something that others can grant or take away. It is something that exists within you, independent of external validation. Imagine a rare diamond buried beneath the ground, unseen for centuries. Does its value diminish just because no one has found it? Of course not. It remains precious, whether people recognize it or not. In the same way, your worth is not determined by whether someone acknowledges it. Just because someone fails to see your light does not mean you are not shining. Society has conditioned people to seek validation. From childhood, many are taught that approval from others equates to success and happiness. A child is praised for getting good grades, winning a competition, or behaving in a way that pleases their parents. As they grow, this need for approval extends to friendships, relationships, and careers. They start believing that love, attention, and recognition define their worth. This is where the problem begins. When people rely on external validation, they give others the power to dictate their value. But what happens when that validation isn't given? What happens when someone ignores you, dismisses you, or treats you as if you don't matter? If your self-worth is tied to their recognition, you begin to question yourself. Am I not interesting enough? Am I not good-looking enough? Am I not smart enough? The mind starts playing tricks, making you believe that their lack of attention is a reflection of your inadequacy. But this couldn't be further from the truth. When someone ignores you, it says more about them than it does about you. People prioritize what matters to them. If they fail to acknowledge your presence, it is not because you are not worthy of acknowledgement. It is because they are incapable of appreciating you in the way you deserve. Their inability to see your value is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of their perspective, their priorities, and sometimes even their own limits. Think about all the great artists, thinkers, and visionaries who were once overlooked or unappreciated. Many were ignored, doubted, and even ridiculed before the world recognized their brilliance. If they had based their worth on external validation, they would have given up long before their potential was realized. But they understood something crucial. Just because someone fails to see your value doesn't mean it doesn't exist. The moment you detach your self-worth from external recognition, you gain power over your own life. You stop chasing approval. You stop settling for less than you deserve. You begin to focus on becoming the best version of yourself, not for the sake of being noticed, but for the sake of your own growth and fulfillment. You start to see yourself as valuable regardless of who acknowledges it. People who truly matter in your life will recognize your worth without you having to prove it to them. The ones who ignore you, dismiss you, or fail to see your value are not the ones meant for you. Holding on to the need for their validation only keeps you trapped in a cycle of self-doubt and insecurity. Instead, choose to see your own worth even when others don't. Your value is not something that fluctuates based on who notices you. It is constant, unshaken, and undeniable. Relationships, whether romantic, platonic, or professional, should always be built on mutual effort. When one person is constantly giving while the other barely acknowledges their presence, an imbalance is created, one that leads to frustration, disappointment, and emotional exhaustion. People often make the mistake of believing that if they just try harder, if they prove their worth, if they show unwavering patience, they will eventually be noticed and appreciated. But the truth is, genuine connections don't require you to beg for attention or fight for a place in someone's life. Effort should be reciprocated. When two people value each other, they naturally invest time, energy, and attention into the relationship. This doesn't mean every interaction must be perfectly equal at all times. Life can be unpredictable, and sometimes one person may need to give more support than the other. However, when a relationship becomes one-sided, when you are the only one reaching out, initiating conversations, making plans, and showing care, it's a sign that something is wrong. No one should have to chase after someone's time and affection. People prioritize what matters to them. If someone consistently ignores you, cancels plans without rescheduling, or only interacts with you when it's convenient for them, they are showing you where you stand in their life. It's easy to make excuses for this kind of behavior, telling yourself they are just busy, that they care in their own way, or that things will change if you just hold on a little longer. But actions speak louder than words. A person who values you will make an effort no matter how busy they are. Even a simple message, a check-in, or a small gesture of appreciation can show that you matter to them. People sometimes cling to relationships where their effort isn't reciprocated because they fear being alone or because they believe things will improve with time. But continuing to invest in someone who doesn't meet you halfway only leads to emotional depletion. It teaches you to accept less than you deserve and normalizes the idea that one-sided relationships are acceptable. In reality, the healthiest and most fulfilling connections come from mutual effort, where both people are equally committed to keeping the relationship alive. Recognizing when your energy isn't being matched is an act of self-respect. It doesn't mean you have to cut people off at the first sign of imbalance, but it does mean paying attention to patterns. A one-time oversight can be forgiven, but consistent disregard should not be ignored. The right people will always make an effort, not because they have to, but because they want to. Those who truly care won't leave you questioning your place in their life. Instead of wasting energy on those who barely acknowledge you, invest in relationships where your time and presence are valued. The people meant for you will never make you feel like you have to fight for their attention. Silence is a form of communication, often more powerful than words. When someone repeatedly ignores you, they are sending a message. Even if they never explicitly say anything, many people struggle to accept this truth because they hold on to hope that the person who is ignoring them will eventually change, that there is a valid reason behind their silence, or that they themselves need to do something differently to earn that person's attention. But in reality, when someone chooses not to acknowledge you, they are revealing exactly how they feel about you. People make time for what they value. When someone ignores your messages, doesn't respond to your calls, or acts indifferent toward your presence, it is rarely an accident. Life can get busy, and everyone has moments when they are preoccupied. But consistent silence is not about being busy, it's a choice. It is a decision to not engage, to not prioritize, to not care in the way you may hope they would. And that decision speaks volumes. One of the biggest mistakes people make is overanalyzing silence, trying to decode what it might mean beyond the obvious. They look for hidden reasons, convincing themselves that the person ignoring them is just going through something personal, or that they must have done something wrong. But while there may be moments where external factors play a role, consistent neglect is never something that should be justified. When someone cares, they communicate, even in the smallest ways. They check in, they acknowledge, they show that you exist in their world. Silence, on the other hand, shows absence, not just physically, but emotionally. It is important to understand that being ignored is not just about lack of attention. It is about what that lack of attention represents. It means you are not a priority. It means that person does not see you in the way you see them. And as painful as that realization may be, it is also necessary. Continuing to chase someone who refuses to acknowledge you only leads to self-doubt and unnecessary emotional turmoil. No one should have to beg to be seen or heard. Many people stay in situations where they are ignored because they believe their patience will eventually be rewarded. They think if they just wait long enough, if they prove their loyalty, the other person will recognize their worth. But that is not how real connections work. Someone who values you will not put you in a position where you have to question their interest. They will not let silence replace communication. They will not leave you feeling invisible. At some point, you have to stop trying to hear what is not being said and start accepting the message that is loud and clear. Silence is an answer, even if it is not the one you want to hear. The sooner you acknowledge it, the sooner you free yourself from waiting for someone who has already shown you where you stand in their life. Letting go is often mistaken for weakness, but in reality, it is one of the strongest things a person can do. Many people hold on to relationships, friendships, and connections that no longer serve them simply because they are afraid of walking away. They convince themselves that holding on is a sign of commitment, that persistence will eventually lead to change, or that letting go means they have failed. But the truth is, clinging to people who disregard you is not a reflection of strength. It is a form of self-neglect. True strength comes from recognizing when something is no longer right for you and having the courage to move on. There is a certain pain that comes with realizing someone does not care for you in the way you care for them. The human instinct is to seek connection, to be valued, to feel like we matter in the lives of others. So when someone repeatedly ignores you, dismisses your presence, or makes you feel invisible, it is natural to want to hold on even tighter, as if doing so will somehow restore the bond that once existed or create one that never truly did. However, holding on does not change the reality of the situation, it only prolongs your suffering. Letting go does not mean you stop caring, nor does it mean that the memories or the connection you shared were meaningless. It simply means you have chosen to prioritize yourself. When you walk away from those who ignore you, you are making a powerful statement that your worth is not dependent on someone else's recognition, that you will not beg for attention, and that you refuse to be an afterthought in anyone's life. It is not an act of giving up, it is an act of self-respect. One of the hardest things about letting go is the fear of emptiness that follows. Many people stay in unbalanced relationships because they fear loneliness more than they fear being mistreated. They tell themselves that even being ignored is better than having no connection at all. But this is an illusion. Holding on to people who do not value you does not bring fulfillment, it drains you. It creates a constant state of anxiety, doubt, and self-questioning. Letting go may feel painful at first, but in the long run, it is the only way to create space for the right people to enter your life. Strength is not measured by how much you endure, but by how much you are willing to walk away from when it no longer aligns with your happiness and well-being. People who genuinely care for you will never put you in a position where you have to fight for their attention or question your place in their life. When you choose to let go of those who ignore you, you're not losing anything. You are freeing yourself from the weight of unnecessary pain. You are choosing peace over struggle, self-respect over desperation, and growth over stagnation. That is real strength. Life is too short to waste time chasing people who do not see your worth. It is natural to want to be appreciated, to be noticed, and to feel like you matter in someone's life. But when you have to constantly fight for attention, when you are always the one making the effort, and when your presence is met with indifference, it is a sign that you are investing in the wrong people. The right people will see you, and more importantly, they will value you without you having to beg for it. Many people make the mistake of thinking that if they just try harder, if they prove themselves, or if they wait long enough, those who ignore them will eventually come around. They convince themselves that the lack of attention is temporary, or that something they do will change the way they are treated. But in reality, love, respect, and appreciation cannot be forced. If someone does not recognize your worth from the beginning, nothing you do will make them see it. Genuine connections are effortless, not a constant battle for recognition. The people who truly belong in your life will not need to be convinced of your value. They will not leave you questioning where you stand. They will not make you feel like you have to earn their time, affection, or validation. Instead, they will show up for you because they want to. They will listen, respond, and make you feel seen without you having to remind them of your existence. It is important to understand that being ignored is not always about you. Sometimes people are caught up in their own lives, their own struggles, or their own distractions. But regardless of the reason, the result is the same. If someone consistently overlooks you, they are not meant to hold a significant place in your life. The right people will recognize your presence, even in the midst of their busy lives. They will make time for you, not just when it is convenient, but because they value you. One of the most liberating realizations in life is that you do not need to chase after anyone. The people who are meant for you will naturally gravitate towards you. They will meet you with the same energy you give, and you will never feel like you have to prove your worth to them. Instead of wasting energy on those who fail to see you, shift your focus to those who do. Spend time with the people who appreciate you, who respect you, and who uplift you. There is no greater feeling than knowing you are valued simply for being yourself. You do not have to shrink yourself, change yourself, or overextend yourself to be noticed. The right people will see you, and they will cherish you without hesitation. They will not ignore you, take you for granted, or leave you questioning your place in their life. They will recognize your worth effortlessly, because to them, you were never invisible to begin with. Life is too precious to spend it waiting for people who do not see your worth. If someone ignores you, dismisses your presence, or treats you as an afterthought, they are showing you where you stand in their life. Instead of holding on to those who do not value you, choose to walk away with dignity. True strength is not in chasing love, attention, or validation, but in recognizing when to let go and make space for those who truly appreciate you. The right people will never make you feel unseen or unimportant. They will meet your energy, respect your presence, and cherish you for who you are. Let go of those who ignore you and trust that life will bring you the right connections. the ones that require no effort to prove your worth. Good luck and thank you message. As you move forward, may you find the courage to release what no longer serves you and embrace the relationships that bring you genuine happiness. Remember, you are worthy of love, respect, and appreciation. Never settle for anything less. Good luck on your journey of self-growth, self-respect, and finding the right people who truly see you. Thank you for listening, and may you always walk in confidence, knowing your worth.